J's, open J's, and open run. If we talking about breaks and shooters filling lanes, all my dogs is down for war. You can tell how they train. Coaches coach and players play, but they learn from each other. If the roles are reversed, they Jason Kidd, we assist one another. Making strides for a ship in the regular season, lacing up these nights, a band of brothers turning into some demons. Through the season, spring to fall, we gon' see who is working. When the winter hit the surface, gon' see who deserve it. Left competition in the dust, now the options deserted. Only lions in my circle, we hungry for purpose. Not just giving all these stripes, you can see that I earned them. Can't buck the system, take the knowledge and study and learn it. Be as strong as said the weakest, 1 through 12 is equal. Tried to trap me, saw him now. You know I had to thread the needle. You know I had to thread the needle, try erase and draw it up, just trying to see my youngins eating. Yeah, you know I had to thread the needle, try erase and draw it up, just trying to see my youngins eating.
All right, welcome to this episode of the Coaches Show for the coaches by the coaches. We have a special guest in the building, Colby G from Prep Hoops, Maryland. How you doing, Colby?
Good, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you as well, man. I hope you're ready for today. It's when we ask the question that we think that the people should know. And coaches already prepared their pregame speeches, so we're ready to jump ball. And our first question is coming from Tobias Jennifer from Huntington High School.
What's going on, Colby? What's up, my brother?
How you feeling, Coach?
Not too bad, man. It's a pleasure having you on. You're obviously the first high school hoops contributor that we've had on. You know, we've had coaches, men's and women, but we haven't had anybody on the media side yet. So, when I thought about getting someone on, it was a no-brainer to get a guy that I know over the last couple of years and who does a great job, with his honesty and input in the basketball community. So, man, that's a hats off to you.
Hey, I appreciate the kind words. Definitely will enjoy answering some questions that I'm sure a lot of coaches and parents and kids all want question because, just to be honest, especially us at Prep Hoops, but not too many guys will get on and speak candidly about, the process of what we go through, really.
Yeah, man, absolutely, man. So it's going to be fun, man. I tell you what, I truly appreciate everything you've done for me in my program. We talked before you got on and the distance, because I know you cover a lot of basketball in Baltimore, high school basketball in Baltimore. I'm down in Southern Maryland, which it's like a hop, skip, and a jump. It's a day's travel. Sometimes it feels like, but you've always gone out of your way and taken care of guys in my program. And even when we met up at the scrimmage at Parkville this year, you were amazing, man. You did a great job. So I just wanted to say that. But I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the first question, man. So who is Colby, man? Who is Colby G? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Give some insight on your background, playing, anything else. Introduce yourself to the listeners, man.
Yeah, for sure. So, who is Colby G? Just a guy who grew up loving the game, played my entire life pretty much from the time, I got in grade school, I would say. It was one of those things where I played basketball and football. I could say that I was a lover of football before. But then in about 7th, 8th grade was when, I started getting introduced to AAU and seeing that you could play basketball year round. So made the decision to stop playing football and just focus on basketball. Ended up going to Calvert Hall my first 2 years, played JV there. And then, it was the same year with, I'm not sure if you guys would be familiar with them, but like guys like John Graham, Kyle Wise, Damian Lee played on that team as well. So I came in with a very talented class. I wasn't a guy who was recruited. I just went to Calvert Hall because that's where I wanted to go. So pretty much they sat me down and was just saying like, look, you're not going to make this team. You're not going to be on the team next year. This is when I was a sophomore. They were talking about varsity. So, and they pretty much said, well, that's it. Well, I was sitting there and I was like, well, I got to do something because I want to play basketball. Really, like, I was a good student. I always had 3.5 GPA or above, but really the only reason why I would say is because I could play basketball is what made school. I just had in my mind, okay, got to do good in the classroom in order to play. So it took a lot of convincing, but my mom allowed me to transfer to Perry Hall, which was literally I could throw a rock and hit the school from our house. So went there. My first year was definitely an adjustment. And, we had an okay year. I would say we were like middle of the pack type team. But then my senior year and my junior year, I made all county. And then my senior year, we had a really good year. I think we went like 19-3 or something, lost in the regional championship. And then I got named county player of the year. I was all county again, all conference, all that good stuff. Had some schools looking at me, had a few D1s that maybe wanted to for me to come and walk on. Had a few D2s here and there that were interested, but then I had a ton of D3s. I really had no idea of what the college process was like. Nobody in my family had went to college. Nobody in my family played basketball at a level that I did. So really I was just blind. I didn't play for a circuit AAU team. So when I look back on it, like I just had no idea of what I was doing. So anyway, I go up to Lycoming College out of high school, and I was so not ready mentally to come from Baltimore, where nothing ever stops, to going up there was just such a culture shock for me. So I got really homesick. Decided it was best for me to come back home to, get my grades right and get my mental right. So I ended up going to Hartford Community College, and then my first year there, last scrimmage of the year, I tore everything in my left knee. So I was out for that year, had to redshirt, went back, had a really good season with them. And then I had a bunch of D2s on me again, but decided to go to Stevenson. And man, I just had a really, really good experience at Stevenson. We were top 25 team in the country. We were, I say I had a good time, but I'd never come off the bench before in my life and until I was there. And I still wouldn't trade it for the world. So I really had a great experience at Stevenson. We had a really, really good team filled with transfers from JUCO and D1 and D2s. And I played for a great coach who taught me more than I can even, begin to say in words. And then I'm sure you guys are familiar with the assistant up there, Jeff Smith, one of the most knowledgeable basketball minds I've been around. And not only that, but I would say I'm probably skipping around, but when he really taught me how to watch film and break the game down and how to do a lot of things that I do on a day-to-day basis now in my position because of him. So, from there, I graduated from Stevenson, didn't know what I wanted to do, but I didn't want to get in coaching yet. So I ended up just working, trying to get this media route down, started blogging for NBA websites, and was lucky enough to land a position with a small Fox sports station covering the Wizards. So I got introduced to, that world, and I was pretty obsessed with it. But it's a very, very, very tough business to break into.
Oh, yeah.
And then, one thing led to another. Making that drive down to DC was just very costly and wasn't right financially. And then Prep Hoops introduced themselves to me, and the rest is kind of history. And now I'm just learning the landscape of the high school, the high school world. And it's crazy because, I've gotten a chance to talk to guys like obviously John Wall, Brad Beal, but I've also talked to LeBron. My first game covering a Wizards game was Kobe's last at the Verizon Center. Chris Paul, Melo, all those guys. But it's like when you're a media member in the NBA, you get on these guys' nerves. They don't feel like talking to you. But when you're at the high school level, kids love to get interviewed. You know what I mean? So it was definitely a different vibe that I was like, I thought I could never see myself covering a high school game, especially coming from the NBA, but I wouldn't even want to go back now.
Oh, man, that's amazing, man. And like I said, you do a great job. Every year during the state championships, I always see you down on the floor, man. you among other guys that are in the media world that do a great job, and you're always honest, man. You always put your input in it, but I know it's a tough world. Like you just said, with parents and even some players and coaches. So, I appreciate that input, man. It's always good to find out and learn a little bit more about our guests that we don't know just from, on the outside looking in. So anyway, I appreciate you, man. I'm going to pass you on to Coach John Kamar from Parkdale High School.
What's going on, Colby? Glad to have you on the show.
Coach, thanks a lot.
Yeah, I've seen you a lot in the past and probably never really spoke to you, but I always see you around. You're very visible. I think something that you just said was very important. As a media guy, I think a lot of coaches and players sometimes always want to question a media's guy's background. And I think this is a perfect platform for you to explain that, because I think a lot of coaches always, want to question the media guys. But when you have that athletic background, your voice speaks different a little bit to the people.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that way as well, and not only to the people, to the parents, but to the players. When I was a player playing, like we weren't so much in that analytical world that we're in now, but we just see a lot of guys, especially at the NBA level, man. Like when I was covering those games, I mean, just to put it real, like it's a bunch of math nerds, and they're out here criticizing NBA players. Well, why aren't you playing with a sprained ankle? Like, man, you probably never had a sprained ankle in your life, and they're playing at a level that you can't even wrap your mind around. So, don't get me wrong, there's some great analytical guys that see both sides. But when you have that background, it definitely does, it gives you a little bit more of respect.
Definitely. So my question to you is, and I have another question I just thought of. My question to you is, just tell the people about what is Maryland Prep Hoops. How was it originated? Like, just let the people know, what is Maryland Prep Hoops.
Yeah, so the company Prep Hoops was originated up in Minnesota by a group of guys, Nick Carroll, Jake Phillips, Jared Nelson. They kind of formulated it with a mindset of, with a mindset of being like the Midwest hoop group. Obviously the hoop group dominates the East Coast. That was kind of their mindset for it. At first covering Minnesota basketball, high school basketball, and then it just they started branching off, finding good guys to run certain states and seeing what could happen from there. When I joined on, a guy that you guys are probably more familiar with, Adam Ayalu. He was the guy that the main guy holding down the Maryland site, and he does a great job covering, Northern Virginia, DC, PG County, all those surrounding counties as well. And then I came on to cover the Baltimore, Howard County, all, those surrounding counties. So, but the vision behind Prep Hoops is obviously you guys can go to, other websites, other national websites to get write-ups on the big name guys who are going to the blue bloods, high majors, mid majors, even low majors. Not only are we going to focus on the prospects that are going at Division I level, but also we want to focus on Division II, Division III, NAIA, JUCO. And I think that's a platform that we hold that not a lot of other websites do. Sure, there's scouting reports out there from individual scouts that can do that, but ours is something that, if you purchase, you get unlimited access to. And I really think that, I can't tell you how many times, whether, it was Adam, myself, Houston, Jack Heron, when we write something about a guy who is a D3 level, how many coaches will contact us right away and be like, hey, I didn't know this kid was available. What do you have his contact info so I can get in touch with him? And, that's something that's not going to happen at that, national website type of level. I know when I was in high school, I did a thing, a popular website. I don't want to mention it. It goes by 4 letters, and they said they were supposed to help you out with recruitment, and you put your highlights on there. You get like an individual recruiting agent or whatnot. They didn't help me. They really didn't. So my main goal, and I think Prep Hoops as a company has done a great job with all of their writers, is having the mindset of like going into a gym, finding players who are worthy to play at the college level, and making it a priority to like, okay, where can they fit and where can I get, what coach can I contact to tell them about them so we can give this kid an opportunity. So that's really the mindset that we approach with every time we step into a gym.
Definitely appreciate it. Definitely appreciate it on this end. So, and I know what website you're talking about as well. So my second question is, I just wanted to ask you, because I think a lot of coaches need to know this, because I ask my personal friends all the time, like, no matter if it's a trainer or a media guy, of course you're obsessed with basketball. I want to know what drives somebody to go to the media opposed to coaching, because obviously we all in it, we love basketball. What makes you want to do media opposed to coaching?
Yep. So great question. And it's a reason why I didn't really want to get into coaching at first when I got out of college. People have no idea the stress that goes into coaching at any level. It's a job that never stops, especially nowadays. But, even at the high school level, at the college level, it's a completely different world. But, man, so with me, obviously I had always had that, on all my teams, I was more the vocal guy. I was always trying to hold myself as a leader, and everyone that I played for would always say, look, I think you're going to eventually be a coach one day. And I mean, it's not something that I'm completely counting out, but for me, I have the best job, in my opinion, in the world. I get to go sit in a gym, watch all these players from everywhere, every different area, while you guys, you have to go coach, you have to have your select group, you have to go coach that select group. After the game, you have to go talk to that select group, and then you have to get all this other stuff organized for the week, practice schedules, make sure you guys are getting your grade sheets in, you make sure the schedule is going correctly, all this stuff that people don't see behind the scenes, while I get to sit back, get my little laptop out, and start writing. And all I'm doing is I'm evaluating players, it can, don't get me wrong, it can get stressful, but it's not one of those things where it can be a burden. I don't view it as a burden. It's something that I really, really enjoy doing. And, once you get to a point where someone's just asking for your opinion on a player, once you prove that you can give correct evaluations of each prospect, then it just becomes easy, because then people just want your opinion on, where that kid fits. So, but here's what I can say though, that the media misses out on. And it's a big thing that I missed out on also, just being a player, is the locker room, just that camaraderie, you guys acting as father figures for these kids. But then also the kids viewing each other as brothers. Like, that stuff, the conversations in the locker room after a loss, after a win, after a tough practice, all that stuff. Like, those are things that I still remember that my teams used to have. Traveling, staying in hotels, having fun, just all that stuff is stuff that you can't get from the media side. And even when I start seeing myself sink into that, I got to pull myself back. Like, I can't be that way, because I got to keep this mind frame up. So I think there's definitely pros and cons to each, but from where I am in my seat now, I'm enjoying it a lot, because, again, for people who don't know, and I know you guys are used to this, but just blame everything on the coach. Y'all have no idea what you guys go through on a day-to-day basis. And let me tell you something else, because I did help coaching out right out of college. I actually helped Josh over at Parkville. And when he handed me that check after the year, I thought a number was missing. And I was like, I said, Josh, they made a mistake, or there's a typo or something. He's like, no, bro, that's what it is. I said, all right, I'm going to start this media thing, because this stuff isn't it. But no, I'm just, but no, like, people who want to always hammer the nail of coach isn't doing enough, and I know all of your guys' programs. I'll just say to this, parents, you have no idea.
Definitely appreciate that insight, and I just think I just needed to allow you to speak on that platform from outside looking in. So
Yep.
definitely appreciate that. All the coaches had to laugh because we all think we missing out on a couple 0. So
You definitely.
I'm gonna pass it on to Coach O from Bladensburg High School.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. Before I get into my question, I did some figures about 6 or 7 years ago, and parents used to laugh at it. And I should tell them, "You gonna get mad at me for 36 cents an hour?"
That's right.
What do you mean 36? I can show you, but I can tell you, 36 cents an hour. She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "We coach from November to March, but guess what? Between them, we're in fall league, we're in spring league, we're in summer league. We do a lot, man, and not even to count the gas, and then the food, maybe positioned like we are, and then the sweatsuits that the parent can only give you half for, and then you feel impressed because you want your whole team to have it, you know what I mean? So I definitely appreciate on that one. The other thing I want to appreciate you too on is it's a tough job to do what you do. I know it's difficult as a crab ball coordinator when we was having the crab ball to pick 12 athletes out of the PG area campus schools, public and private, was definitely tough. You just imagine how many emails I actually get, like, how did this kid make it and this kid didn't make it? I said, well, it's only for Maryland residents. Well, how did this kid? And it just gets on and on and on. And it's definitely a tough job because there's so many teams that you have to cover and so many players, you know what I mean? So definitely want to say thank you for what you do as well. Now, the question that I'm going to get to that I know the people want to know, what is the criteria on and how do you do ratings for players, DC, Maryland, and Virginia?
Gotcha. So obviously it's broken up. We do Maryland and DC players together, and then Virginia is kind of its own state within our rankings. So when we're evaluating a player, one thing that we do that's going to be different, I would say, from the national guys, because the national guys have it very, very tough, right? Because they're expected to cover every player in the country. They might see a player. They could see a player once or twice, and they just have to go off feedback of their connects in that area to say, hey, I'm comparing player A and player B. Who's really better in the rankings? I've seen rankings from national sites get very ugly with, some incentives involved. And but with us at Prep Hoops, man, like if there's a kid that's going to I won't say that. If there's a kid that's going to Georgetown and there's a kid that's going to UMBC, if we believe the UMBC prospect is better, we're going to rank him ahead. It's whatever. It's not just because whatever prospect goes to a bigger college gets ranked higher. As you saw this year, I mean, Ace Baldwin played out of his mind at St. Francis up here, and he was, around number 5 before our final rankings this season. And, Hunter Dickinson being the number 1 guy. And we ballooned Ace up to number 2 because of, how he brings that winning pedigree and how he has that clutch gene and all that. So we take in a lot of different factors. Obviously, guys who are 6'8" and above are going to be prized because you can't teach 6'8" and above. If they have skill, especially if they have perimeter skill, that's what today's modern game is looking for. Now, if there's a really skilled guard, I'll just go back to Ace, who has the intangibles of being a coach on the floor and being able to come through when his team needs him most and pretty much will his team to victory. That can help his argument. But man, to be honest, there's a lot of different factors that go in the rankings. A big thing that I am on, because when you're talking about the cream of the crop guys, there's little things that can separate you. And the way that I was coached in college and the way that I've learned the game from both high school and college coaches of what you really look for is I'm big on the intangibles such as body language, leadership, how they interact with their teammates, all that. So we've had a prospect in the past who is going to a Division I school. I talked to many Division I coaches, and they all had the same thing to say about his body language, his effort level, and so on and so forth. Now, in the national rankings, you would have saw him be in, I would even consider the top 75, top 50. But when I go out and see him play and I transition that into my mind at a mid to high level Division I don't feel like he's going to transition well. So we had him below guys that were getting low major looks. And like I said, now he will be attending a mid to high major school. And people had a problem with that. And like I said, whenever somebody has a problem with rankings, my DMs are open. My email is available. I can give you my number and we can have a conversation. But I just know I just feel like I have a grasp on what coaches look for that transition into the next game, the next level. And, the other thing that's very tough about rankings is it's not just my decision. It's myself, it's Adam, and it's Houston. And there's some guys that we really go head to head on. And I'm like, yeah, I don't agree with you guys. And we have to find a middle ground to where when we rank a certain player. So, obviously, just to kind of put a bow on it, you look at the player's size, you look at his skill set, you look against the competition with whom he performs against on a consistent basis. And then I think those intangibles come in at the very end, but they do hold a lot of weight for us.
Yeah, I mean, you covered it all, and I definitely understand. I mean, it's like almost, to me, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm in a couple of Madden leagues because of this pandemic. It's almost like playing Madden. You want to get you got to look at all the intangibles. You can't just get a guy because he says he's 88 overall. You might have a 67 overall, but he has the best route running and he got good hands. You know what I mean?
Look, man, I mean, and we're talking about really any level, but when you're talking about the Division I guys who are getting recruited by the Power 5, or you know what, I just want to stick with the mid-major, low-major guys. Let's stick with them. When you're talking about coaches have a crop of players that they can choose from. More than likely, your skill set is going to be on par with somebody else that they're looking at. That's why they have those type of depth charts with their recruitments. But your attitude and all that stuff that come into play, that can give you an edge on another kid. Same way it can come back to hurt you. And I just feel like, again, people are going to point at the coach and say it's your fault for not. That stuff starts at home, and it starts at, this is a whole different conversation probably for another discussion, but with the parents in the crowd, they don't understand how much they impact a player's level of play. I've seen so many kids that have, Division II, say a Division II skill set when their father or mother aren't in the stands. And then when their father and mother are in the stands, well then like, man, I'm just hoping I can advertise them to a Division III coach. And it's like, there's so many things that go into play with something, but and college coaches are also investing into the family as well. So definitely a ton of factors that do come into play. So that's why it comes into what's going to separate you from the next guy. And I believe the intangibles, things like grades, all the things that a player can control, they need to.
Absolutely. And like too, with the rankings and stuff like that, when I was in high school, it wasn't too much about rankings, but you knew who the players were and you look forward to beating those guys. So I mean, so if a kid's ranked that night, he's coming into your gym, that's when you tie your shoes up tight and you want to improve yourself on why I need to be here and there. You know what I mean? Because the rankings can't never be right. I mean, everybody on this panel said that LeBron James better than Michael Jordan, except for me. You know what I mean? But it's all the subjective. Okay, I ain't gonna go there. It's all subjective stuff like that. But I definitely I get it and I understand. I appreciate that insight, and I'm sure everybody that's gonna be watching will appreciate it as well. So I'm gonna pass you over to
Colby. What's up, man?
Will, how are you?
Fine. Good to talk to you. Glad to have you on. We talk quite often and stuff like that. We don't get up that much, but, I appreciate you responding back if I send you a message or anything. So I appreciate that. And just to touch on rankings a little bit, it's just extremely funny how people take rankings as a negative thing. You know what I mean? Like a rankings can go good and bad. You know what I'm saying? Like if I'm a guy and I see that, like Coach O said, that guy's supposed to be better than me, I'm going to lace it up. Or if I'm not ranked, I'm going to be like, okay, now I need to get my game better and to see what I got to do to take notice so people see that I'm ranked. But, you know, a lot of kids nowadays, they don't take it like that. You know, they take everything personal instead of using like Michael Jordan, who always tried to turn a negative into a positive. But
yep,
you
no,
know.
I mean, my feedback with that too is, you know, there's a lot of negatives to being highly ranked, and the main reason being, like, the only way you can go really is down. Because if you slack off a little bit, or like you said, everybody's out, you have a target on your back, so you need to come out in your tip-top shape every single game when the scouts in the stands. So I definitely agree with you there. They can play huge positives, they can play huge negatives. And another thing that I want to say about ranking is a very good college coach isn't going to depend on ranking at all. So the parents and players that are putting all their stock in where they're ranked, stop wasting your energy on the wrong things. Because if a college coach is truly doing his homework on you, he's not just going to go look at a list and say, okay, let's go recruit this player.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand that. It's just like stats. You know, people automatically think, oh, I average 20 points a game. Automatically, that means I'm better than this one. I'm better than that one. But everybody's role is different. You know, a kid at the Mather, a third guy at the Mather might be averaging only 10 points a game. You know what I mean?
That was the big thing with me too. Like I said, I had no idea about this world coming out of high school. So at Perry Hall, my senior year, I had the mindset of, let me just score as much as I can. And I averaged 27.9 points per game, and I wasn't getting any looks. But the kids at Mount St. Joe, who were playing 15 minutes a game, were off to Division I schools, and I didn't understand that. Now I do. Now I have a complete understanding of it. And then I also understand my limitations as an athlete and, you know, as a basketball player. So there's a lot of things that, of course, when you're a kid and you have those aspirations, you get blinded by, because you say, I'm putting up the stats, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then when someone comes into your world and says, okay, but you're not doing this and you're not doing that, and they want to shut down and swell up and not want to hear any negative. So definitely plays a role.
And I'm gonna be honest, and I'll say it, and I'm sure some of the people on the panel feel this way too. We also feel that sometimes private school guys get the benefit of the doubt.
Yep.
Because I know every year when I worked at DMV Elite 80, I was just talking about it. I mean, I see a lot of private school guys that I hear a lot about get ate up by public school kids. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna be honest, John Kamar's kid, Colby at Parkdale, if he went to Parkdale Christian or Parkdale Academy, he'd be already signed, sealed, delivered Division I. John, I know you can be modest, you can't say it, but I can't. He's not my kid. That's just the way we feel, and a lot of people like that. But, you know, that's no knock on you, but that's just sometimes we feel that sometimes our public school kids do get slighted sometimes.
And that's why I urge, you know, Will, you do a great job of it. Tobias, you do a great job. There's a lot of you know, public school coaches who really take pride in their program. And this goes for everybody listening. When you guys have a player like that doesn't feel like they're getting the exposure or attention they deserve, please send me their information. Because it could be a thing where we just didn't know about them. And once you give me their information, they're on my list, and I'm looking for updates on them. I'm looking for film. I'm looking for all that. So any coaches out there that feel like that they do have a prospect, and the other side to that coin is, if I watch it and I don't feel like that he is a college player, I'm going to tell you. I'm not just gonna leave it be and you know, let it lay. So definitely reach out. And the other thing I want to say is, especially with your guys' coaching circle down there, scouts talk, college coaches talk. We know that the high level coached teams, and they know where to get the cream of the crop of the public school. I mean, I can very confidently say all you guys are on that list, because they know when they get a player from that school, they're going to be coached the right way. I think what you guys are battling is, it's such a hit or miss at the public school level with coaches' involvement. Whether when that last buzzer sounds for last year, some coaches, I'm done, see y'all on November 15th. You know, and that's it. But as many of you have already spoke to, okay, season's over. I'll see you guys next week. You guys rest. After that, it's spring workout time, and you're treating it like a college program, and it's very overlooked by the guys who just want to be a high school coach or a high school teacher that just happens to coach basketball. So you guys live it. Those guys just, you know, they do it for a hobby, and that's not our world.
Well, it's funny you say that, and Coach O, step in if you say so. But I remember you saying this. Coach O said he thinks that some of these rules that we have at the public school level is to protect those coaches that only want to coach from November to March.
Absolutely.
But
Yep. No, I completely agree, man. And like, to be honest, when I see a kid that's on a coaching staff like that, I definitely try to stick my neck out for him because I feel like nobody else is. But it's just, I just look at that guy like, it pisses me off so much, man, because there's some kids that really do put the time in on those teams and deserve to get exposure. And that's another motivation of mine. I can say this, you know, I did have a good relationship with my high school coach at Perry Hall, but he, in terms of advertising the players on our team, man, nothing. I mean, I got nothing. I did all the recruitment on my own. That's why when I was at Hartford as well, aside from the Division II offers that I got, I emailed Stevenson myself. I was like, hey, I'm interested in coming to your school and playing. Can you guys come out and watch me play? And, you know, it just – what you guys do and how much you're involved. I know when Duke and North Carolina are coming into your guys' gyms looking at your players, the parents are blowing gaskets saying, well, you know, why are you coming into our gyms? Just you guys know what it is, and you guys are doing a great job.
You appreciate that, and that's the one thing I love about our group, man, is that we all hold each other accountable. And you know what I mean? And that lets you know when you have good friends, when they hold you accountable, regardless if they tell you what you want to hear and what you don't want to hear. Those are the type of friends that you want in your circle.
And the other thing too for you fellas, like, as you guys know, it's all a process, man. So you guys are starting something and you're growing it, but it's gonna take years. And I know you guys know that, but the word is spreading about, you know, the basketball down there, because let's face it, before, you know, when a 4A or whatever class would show up from Southern Maryland at Xfinity, or like, you know, who the hell is this? You know what I mean? Like, and they're about to get the brakes beat off. But you guys are changing that script. And as they all say, Rome wasn't built in a day, and it's a process. You guys are fighting with, as you say, private schools. You guys are fighting with parents that know everything in the entire world. So, you know, it's an uphill battle for you guys, but you're definitely mentioned in tons of conversations. I'll say that.
Appreciate that. So I'll get to my question is, so man, and I was fortunate enough to have a kid in that game. I was there in attendance, and it was a great event from Baltimore. So I got a chance to see a lot of my homies in Baltimore. I don't get a chance to see quite often because they're so far. But what was the goal of the Super 80?
The goal of the Super 80 was to just give exposure to the Baltimore players, or the Baltimore-based players. I saw that there was a lot of all-star games. Of course, they have a tremendous amount of all-star games down there, and they do it right, and they do it well, and they do it big down in D.C., in the D.C. area. But there just wasn't many up in the Baltimore area to expose the talent that we have. And that was a big motivation for me. Obviously, we had it, I think it was maybe 2 years from now, because I didn't have it last year.
Yeah, it was when Jake was a freshman.
Yep. Yeah. And obviously, we couldn't have it this year. But, you know, I actually saw Jake at another Baltimore, like, all-star game event. And, you know, that's where he caught my eye. And I put him on my radar. I spoke with you about him. And, you know, I did branch off into different areas for maybe 1 or 2 roster spots. You know, the goal is to maybe I would like to have a game where it's kind of like the high D1 players, the Division II / Division III caliber players. I would like to break it up into categories.
Great idea. Great idea.
And expand it. Not just in Baltimore. But the other thing that I also told those guys, because I remember it was the class of 2020 games, so all Ace and Justin Lewis and all those guys, they came out in the first half and were lollygagging, and I was livid. So,
I remember that.
Yeah. Yep. And listen, the freshman and sophomore games were fantastic. Like those were the best games. But they came out and started lollygagging. So I stopped it at halftime. I brought them all in. And I said, if this is the way you guys want to play, get your stuff now and get out, because I don't need you. And I have national scouts here to watch you guys play. They're not coming to the Super 80 showcase to say, okay, let's go watch an all-star game. This isn't an all-star game. It's a showcase. And for all those arguments that you guys can get about rankings and all that stuff, okay, well, now we're going to roll the ball out and we're going to see who really is the best. And, even still today, I feel like we don't have that many environments. Like, say when I was playing, when you guys were playing, like we used to go at each other's necks, man. Like we wanted to prove something, but now you look around and there's 15 cameras. So after the shot, they got to make sure they look at the right camera and do this and do that. It's like, yo, like just go at each other. That's why I want this environment.
But that's one of the negatives, and I think that's one of the negatives. I like AAU, but that's one of the negatives. Is what, I can lose my 8 o'clock game. I'm still gonna play again at 10 and stuff like that. When we were growing up, and tell me if I'm wrong, Coach O. When you go play ball somewhere and there's 30 people on the sideline, you have to win this game. You better get this stopped, because if you lose, you might not play again for 2 hours.
But those dudes, those kids are in our program. Our kids in that showcase will play their ass off. That's because they hungry. You know what I mean? So when you already got all the shoe deals and the uniforms and the book bags and the food and the pregame meals and all the rides and stuff, you kind of like take the back seat, like, I play in another AAU next week. I play in another showcase next week for free. You know what I mean? Wild kids trying to find 125, just trying to get to the spot. That's the difference, man.
And that's why, and that's that mentality that's why we're seeing so many coaches. It's a different style of play and a different style of ball, but especially up in the Northeast, like say in Massachusetts and all the states up there, they're starting to dip down in the DMV area, because I specifically contacted a couple coaches. I'm like, look, usually you'd see a guy or two from this area go up north, but we're seeing more numbers. I would just say, why is that? Like, we want that mentality that you guys bring. It's a dog eat dog world. They have no idea who anybody is when they step on the court up here, but they're just going to go at them. But also, as Coach was saying, like, these guys tend to take it for granted very quickly, and they also get that entitlement. I don't like that. I don't like that, because I feel like the kids that go out and don't feel any sense of entitlement, one that comes to my mind just right away from this area that I enjoyed watching since the time he was a freshman was Jamal West. He didn't care about what he was ranked. He didn't care about anything. And that's what us scouts, the good players don't care about rankings. They don't know what they're ranked, and they really don't care. Just put me in front of somebody and let's compete.
I used to hear that a lot about Deron Barnes from Wise. I used to hear a lot. I mean, I've heard John.
That's another one.
I've heard John talk about him. I've heard O talk about him. I watched him one day. I'm not going to say who he did it against. I watched him one day in an AAU event, and he was abusing this guy. And this guy was, nationally ranked player, Division I, all these Division I offers. Deron Barnes went at his neck. And not one person in that gym thought that boy is better than Deron Barnes.
As rankings are a part of my job, I'm being hypocritical, but they don't matter, man. They don't matter. Speaking of that player, I mean, once that ball rolls out, they don't matter at all, because you can't hide. You can't hide, and that's another thing that I wanted to, that I also wanted to achieve with the showcase was okay, let me get some top names, but then let me get a couple guys that I know when I put out there, when those top names are going to try to go up for a jelly layup, well, he's coming behind you. He's about to pin it. You know what I mean? He doesn't care. He doesn't care if he gets dunked on. He doesn't care if he gets crossed over for one play. He's going to come right back and he's going to strip it the next time. You know what I mean? That's what we're missing because everybody's so afraid to go on camera. Like, yo, screw the camera. Everybody's going to watch that clip. Oh, my God, he just got dunked on. Scroll, and then there's another one. You know what I mean? So I wish kids would stop getting held up on that and really just play to compete.
Yeah. I appreciate all that definitely the nuggets that you just dropped. And I'm going to pass it to my man, Desmond Wade of Blake High School.
Hey, Colby, how you doing, man?
Coach, good to talk to you. How are you?
Man, I'm wonderful, man. This has been one of the most insightful interviews that we've had, man. So I just appreciate you coming on and dropping so many gems, man.
I try to be honest, man. So when people talk to me, they don't feel like they're getting one side or another. I am who I am. Take it or leave it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've seen you in passing a couple of times, but now I'm intrigued to kind of pick your brain a little bit more just to get you out.
Absolutely.
And let's chop it up. And you kind of just touched on it. But my question, there was a tweet that you actually sent out that said the talent in DC, Maryland, Baltimore is unmatched. And I was just going to say, why do you believe that talent is unmatched?
Yep. I mean, I believe it. I believe it's unmatched just because of the guys who came before. And you could say that for really any generation. I think the generations that continue to lay the foundation provide a standard for the players who are upcoming to live up to. And not only that, but, you know, when these next generations that are coming up, they're either being mentored or they're looking at them as role models or friends with guys who are eventually going on and playing at a high level, whether that be college, the NBA, overseas, anything like that. So those expectations are set. And not only that, but it's also unlocks them where, okay, well, if he can do it, then I can do it. Once you get that to follow suit, you know, everybody has to kind of fall in line and they see what it takes to get to that high level that these players are playing on. When you go to a different state or a different area, you know, you'll have your blue chip prospects here and there, but you're not going to be able to go down to one gym and see multiple of those guys. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, whether it be Baltimore, DC, PG County, and the surrounding areas, when we go into you go into a gym and you'll see 4 or 5 Division I coaches that you see roam in the sidelines, during their games, whether it be in the ACC, Big East. I can't tell you how many times I saw Patrick Ewing walk into a gym this year. I mean, you know, for whatever he's doing in that program, one thing that I can say is he's going to show his face and he's going to do his work on the recruiting trail. So man, I just feel like with all of the tradition that each area has within Baltimore, all the way down to DC and in between, it's a competition, and it's a healthy competition because obviously there's that attitude of, wait, well, Baltimore's better than DC. No, DC is better than Baltimore, all that. And we can get into that conversation too, because I'm from Baltimore. I'm a Baltimore guy. I'm going to ride for my Baltimore guys. But going down to DC is a different ball game. We got the athletes. We got the guys who can jump out of the gym. We got the guys who are dogs. But DC has that, and they know how to play the game in terms of IQ. That's what separates them. And, I mean, man, just to make it full circle, I just feel like that tradition of high-level players really causes the young and upcoming players to live up to that tradition.
Yeah, man. Definitely the standard has been set. And we're, as coaches, I could say on behalf of all of us, I mean, we definitely try to keep it going and make sure the players know that we are it, man. So definitely appreciate you giving that insight. I mean, when you're talking about the rankings and you're even going into the body language, like, I'm sending this out to my players immediately. just to let them know that that's things that everybody's watching for, just not the coaches.
Yeah, I can't, and really I can't stress that enough because, and I'm talking about, I'm not just watching, and this is just me, I can just speak for myself. I'm not just watching when that player gets subbed out, how is he running to the sidelines? Is he jogging? Does he walk? Is his head down? When his coach stops him on the sidelines after he makes a mistake, does he look up? Does he look the coach in the eye? When after he's done the dialogue with the coach, does he walk down the entire bench and shake everyone's hand or smack everyone's hand? Does he go down, hit two, sit back? Does he lean back in his chair on the bench, or does he sit up and is he looking engaged? All that stuff. I mean, I'm dissecting all that because at the end of the day, I'm at the gym, and if I'm looking at a player like that, obviously they can play somewhere in college, but I have a responsibility to tell a coach that, look, this guy isn't going to give you any issues. There's only a certain amount of players in the country that players will go, okay, he's a headache, but let's deal with him. And one came from this area way back when, and I was just listening to a podcast recently, Michael Beasley. Frank Martin knew when he was getting involved with Mike Beasley, it was going to be a circus. And he even calls that the Michael Beasley circus. And it's like, so those little things are what can separate you going to college and playing basketball or being at home.
Man, definitely appreciate it. I know this out your lane, man. I'm about to have you come talk to the team before the season starts.
Hey, trust me, with all that stuff, guys. If that's something that you guys would like me to do, I'm more than willing, and I would love to, and I would give all your players my number after the meeting as well, for them to reach out to me for anything that they need. Obviously, another huge thing that's put on your guys' shoulders and your responsibility is looking out for these guys' mental health. With everything they got to endure of being a teenager. So, any outlet that we can give these kids that maybe don't have a stable home or don't have the best home life is I think it's all positive.
Man, I appreciate you. We appreciate you. And we're going to keep it rolling. I'm going to pass it over to Coach Maul, Washington Bennett.
Hey, how you doing, Colby?
What's going on, Coach?
Ain't too much. Coach Small, Washington Adventist University. I heard you mention some things. It's good to know. I do kind of look at some prep hoop stuff. We don't heavily rely on no rankings. We always out, and we pay attention to a lot of the stuff that you mentioned, like how is he reacting to his teammates? What is his body language on the bench? Like how well does he take coaching? What does he do? We like to, honestly, it sounds weird, but it's one of the things we like to do when we really like a kid. We want to go out and see him struggle in the game to see how he is going to act. So hearing a lot of the stuff that you talked about that you look for in those intangibles now makes me say, I can trust Colby Rankins, or I can trust his opinion on the kid if we're looking to bring a kid on at Washington Adventist. So, I appreciate that feedback and getting to know you through this process. So I'm definitely going to link with you in reference to that. So with that being said, obviously this business, even with media and coaches, one thing that commonly comes up is relationships. How is your relationship with coaches? I know we understand that, your platform, obviously, the rankings and stuff, and some coaches are heavily dependent on it. But how is your relationships, your specific relationship, and what are you doing to push kids? Do you make calls to coaches and say you need to recruit this kid, or how does that work for you to help kids to get to the next level?
Yeah, no question. So as quickly as I may have just convinced you to maybe reach out to me for an opinion of a kid, it can be that quick that I break a college coach's trust. With saying, this kid, you should look at this kid, or you should recruit this kid. If I tell a coach from, let's just go and say someone out in West Virginia or someone like that, hey, you need to come look at this kid from Baltimore. They come up, he's got a terrible attitude. Like I said, all the stuff that I just named in the prior question, he's not doing. Well, that coach is going to walk in and say, I just wasted my time. So next time I reach out to him, you think I'm going to get a response? No. I need to it's, you know, it's not one of those things where I'm really reaching out to coaches first too much. Mainly coaches will contact me and say, look, here's what we're looking for in the 2021 class. Here are some names that we are interested in. Do you have anybody that, you know, of interest? And I'll, you know, I'll name them off the guys that I think are qualified for their level. Now, there are a lot. So coach, you're another one that's fighting an uphill battle. And just in terms of getting kids to NAIA school, there are a lot of schools that maybe you don't see on the back of cars when bumper stickers when you're riding down the road. You're not going to see people with gear from, you know, Washington and Venice walking around too much, or they're not going to be in stores where you can buy them. But they have no idea that you guys kicked the brakes off of Division I teams, and that half of the kids that think they can go to your school and play don't even stand a chance. So when all these kids are talking about, you know, I want to go D1, D2, and they're not listening to D3s, and then NAIAs are trying to get involved with them, and they're just not educated on it. It's sad to me, but I look at that as my responsibility. Okay, I see a kid that's this level, and then what I do is I compare them to maybe the type of kid that you guys have recruited in the past. And then I might contact you and say, hey, what do you guys look for when you are, you know, writing up your blueprint of a Washington Venice player? When you give me that, okay, the next time when I'm evaluating players and I see one that fits that mold, I might reach out. Hey, coach, I see this kid. And there's a lot of times where like, yeah, you know, we saw him before. Not crazy about him, but we'll definitely try to, you know, get out there again and take a look. Okay, great. I did my due diligence. I reached out and I felt like I did what I was supposed to do. Now there's some, man, like just the other day, there was a kid that committed to a Division II school, and he didn't have any offers. He was getting no Division II attention. There was a Division II school that contacted me and said, look, we need a kid at his position and we need him bad. So I gave him 3 names and I said, look, but this is the guy that I would lean towards. And a week later, I got the message that that kid committed and he's going to get free education. You know what I mean? So I can definitely hold some weight in helping guide a coach to where they need to go. But the thing that I'm going to hang my hat on as well is tell a player, coach, if you contact me and say, hey, I got told to look at player A, I'm going to say, don't waste your time, because you're going to go there and you're going to waste your time. Take that time and make that 3-4 hour drive to see a player that actually deserves it and that can play at your guys' level. I'll just name a few local schools that probably anybody in any public or private school think they can play at. Towson. I feel like Towson is a school that people think they can just walk in the gym and play. CAA basketball is no joke. And a lot of those guys will get run off the floor and don't even belong in the same gym. So, you know, that's a school where they'll bounce stuff off me a lot for certain players because they're getting advertised, hey, he can play here. No, he can't. He's not a CAA player. So it's an open dialogue. But as I just said, it takes me a while to gain a coach's full trust, of course, and then I can break it with one bad mistake. So that's the way I kind of view it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate your feedback. And it just seemed like, you know, just in this entire interview, you do your homework. It is recruiting for us. It's somewhat challenging, but we got a lot of relationships. So some kids that we may not get immediately that went D1 or D2 that realized that wasn't a good fit, they're calling us now. Yep. Because we offer scholarships and they know we play high-level basketball too. So, yeah, 100%. And just like you said, I mean, relationships is everything. I mean, I would invite you to come and get to know our coaching staff and what we look for in players and stuff like that, because a lot of our recruiting, even though we are in the field and in a lot of gyms, a lot of our recruiting come from relationships and somebody suggesting a player, or you should take a look at this kid. He being under-recruited. He may be a steal for you because somebody's not valuing this kid at a certain level. And me, I thrive and I thrive off that information, and I like to beat everybody to the gym and discover a kid before the masses get on and show them that we appreciate them before everybody else jumps on this quote-unquote bandwagon before the rankings and stuff like that. So, yeah, I appreciate that feedback, and we definitely got to connect. I'm still potentially looking to add some people, so we definitely going to talk after that. But I'm going to pass it along to Tobias. Back to Tobias.
What's up, my man? Good to hear all the good things, man. I tell you what, I'm just going to kind of touch base on a few things, but you know, Coach Des said it, man. You definitely dropping some gems, man, and kind of to touch base on a couple of things. To attest to some things that you've said, I've sent you information on kids directly, and we've had some dialogue back and forth, if it's through Twitter or even texting or calling about certain kids and what you may have thought about them. So, you know, you are a man of your word where, you know, if there's something you want to know, or if you feel like this kid isn't getting that particular due diligence, then you feel as if it's your job to do so. And I appreciate you for that, man, because we just had a conversation, I don't even know, maybe a month ago, about a certain kid, and I appreciate you for that. And then kind of to touch base on your rankings, man, I try to tell my kids all the time, rankings don't matter. I'm actually while we're sitting here, because Coach Des said it, you know, while we're sitting here, I texted my kids, like, look, I'm going to send you this interview via YouTube right after we're done, because I think you guys got to understand what this high school hoops contributor is saying and evaluator is saying is things that, you know, you should take into consideration. And so just a quick example, this past year, we kind of loaded up our schedule a little bit and we played Delaney, and Delaney's had a heck of a year the last couple of years. And Coach Lochte is a really good friend of mine. And it was a game on the schedule where I knew they had some really, really high ranked guys, you know, locally and nationally. And we don't. And I told my kids, you know, you could use that as motivation. So when you step on that court, you know, you got to be ready to play. They put their shoes on the same way we do. They do a lot of the same things we do. So what's the difference? And, you know, I know they have some Division I guys who've recently committed. But, you know, a little school like Huntington, we went up there and we got them and we beat them. And, you know, a lot of people texted me and called me after the game and was like, oh, my God, you guys beat Delaney. Well, I expected to beat Delaney. And that's no slight to them at all. You know, I expected to do that. And, you know, we had a point guard in our team and some other guys on our team who were really, really good, who took the competition and the matchups with, you know, Ryan Conway and a couple of those other guys personally. And once again, I'm not trying to make this, you know, any type of slight to those guys at Delaney, because they do a great job and they have a heck of a program. But that's just an example of where you can't worry about rankings. You got to go out there and you just got to play. You got to roll the ball out there and you got to play like when you're talking about your event. So, man, I appreciate you, man, for that. And this insight has been unbelievable, man. It's been one of the most insightful interviews we've done so far. So I'm going to get to my question. So obviously, you know, you work for Maryland Prep Hoops. How has the pandemic affected, you know, Maryland Prep Hoops? Or has it affected them in any way in terms of rankings, the events that you guys usually attend or hold, you know, the social media presence? And then what has Maryland Prep Hoops done, or what have you done to adjust to the times where they're still visible and reliable?
Yep. So obviously we're all confined to the house. All the live action has come to a halt. Usually we would be out in gyms every weekend. I'd be going to AAU practices during the week, you know, all that good stuff. And that's all come to a stop. And we don't know when it's going to really get back up. We're seeing some positive things go in that direction. So I'm hoping that it keeps trending that way. But Prep Hoops as a company, usually Prep Hoops has their own circuit. And they are starting to break into the Eastern, the Eastern market, but they, you know, I think the closest they got to our area is like maybe Myrtle Beach. They'll hold an event in Myrtle Beach, AAU once again, but most of them are out in the Midwest and, you know, up north as well. So all those have been pretty much postponed till further notice. You know, they were able to adjust and make them into like maybe late July / August, early September type deals. But really everybody's just kind of a wait and see. So what I'm telling not only players, but college coaches are telling me too, what else do we have to do except just resort to film? And that's all really that I've been doing, aside from doing like little rankings articles in terms of area rankings and all that good stuff. It's really just watching a ton of film. And to be honest, with everything that moves so quickly, when AAU season is starting up, you know, you go and see a player on a weekend who might have a really good stretch of games on a Saturday, and then that's your only day seeing them. Well, you leave that gym with a completely different mindset than if you were to stay for Sunday and he didn't play well again. So you don't have that balance. So you just think, okay, well, this kid, you know, I could see him maybe developing into a low major player. And so right now I feel like is a time where not only college coaches, but scouts can start to get things right, because all we have to do is divert back to film. And that strings even up to the NBA level. I mean, that's been a conversation as well. Obviously, with the draft approaching, everybody's saying, you know, it's not where these NBA GMs fall in love with the meeting when the 6'10", long-limbed forward walks in the room and you fall in love with them. You know, maybe dive into the film of the 6'8" guy, like an Obi Toppin. When you dive into his film and say, okay, he really does this well. Let's draft him instead of falling in love with the wingspan of this guy. You're actually taking the basketball stuff and investing all your stock in that. So I've been doing I've started some film breakdowns. Adam has done some as well. That's another thing that I extend out to all you guys and all surrounding coaches. If there's a certain player that you feel is, you know, up to par and play at a college level, send me some film, because I'm going to be doing some breakdowns on, you know, what they do well and all that good stuff, because everything's video nowadays. So we're doing a ton of that. And then also just, you know, just kind of talking of our takeaways from this year. It was obviously cut short for a lot of guys, but it's kind of given us a time to take a deep breath and really not get steered in the wrong direction off of, you know, say if this guy had a really bad high school season, but then goes and plays on an AAU team that doesn't run any sets and he's chucking the ball from three, but those shots are going in. So it's like, wait, do we have to move this guy up because now he's a really good shot maker, but then he gets put in a structured offense in high school and he looks lost because he doesn't have that IQ. So I feel like it's given us a time to take a deep breath, take a step back, and then really dissect film on kids. And as they say at every level, fellas, there ain't no running from film. You can't run from film. Like I said, there's some college coaches, man, I've seen it in an AAU gym where, again, a guy will have a really good game against a really good player and he'll get, you know, we're going to offer you. It's like, yo, can I just show you his film from this season real quick? Because you're going to take that offer back. But, you know, I think it's working out for everyone in a sense. But then again, man, there was a lot of kids I feel so bad for the rising seniors and the rising juniors who miss out on the spring and summer to really make a name for themselves. And to be honest, man, really it comes down to the D2s, the D3s, those type of prospects, because the D1 prospects are known. Their names already circling in them conversations. The D3 guys, you know, spring and summer are a time where they get the momentum for them, then those programs to organize their recruiting calendar during the season to come out and watch, and they're getting that cut short. So again, that's where I kind of step up and I'm like, that's my responsibility. It's my responsibility for that kid missing the spring. Well, I'm not going to allow his recruitment to hurt from it. I need to get, you know, his name out to the right people.
Yeah, man, I definitely agree. I noticed that Adam started up it was almost like what's the thing on ESPN where they break down the film. I think it's like Spotlight.
With Mike Schmitz and all that. I don't know if you guys been watching that, but man, every time he releases one, I'm all on it. And Adam's way better than me with the technical side of things. But I'm starting to get the hang of how to do it, and I just released my first one last week. So now I'm gonna keep them coming, just because I feel like also when you're breaking down film from our point of view, it's very easy to just say, the scout, well, how well does he know the X's and O's? Because, to be honest, a lot of scouts, there's some scouts that don't know that part. And,
Sure.
if you say, hey, well, why don't they bring this kid off of Iverson cut? They're going to say, what is that? And it's like that's where that respect with the coaches, that's why I'm like, you know what? I need to allow myself to gain the respect of not only the high school coaches, but the college coaches, to actually hear that I know somewhat what I'm talking about better than these guys who, let's face it, I could go, whoever could go just make a blog and then go sit in a gym and say, I'm with this media outlet, and go and rank players. And you have no idea what they're ranked off. And it gives guys like us or other scouts that don't have relationships with coaches and they really don't know us, it gives us a bad name. Oh, they're just here to slander players. So, there's a lot that goes into it.
Man, that's why I have a ton of respect for you, man, because not only did you play the game, you know the game, you're honest, and you're always going to put your best foot forward, man. So I appreciate it, man. We're definitely going to stay in touch. You're a hard worker, and you're doing a great thing for the kids, man. And anytime you're doing it for the kids, you're doing it for the right reason. So, I appreciate you. I'm gonna pass the live over to Coach O from Bladensburg. Oh, good catch.
Yeah, I came off that Iverson cut. Then I got ripped. You know what I mean? Here come my screen, though. I'm not going to use it. I'm going baseline. But, yeah, definitely, man. A few things I want to touch on, because like I know Tobias, we always got our notes. You know what I mean? Notes is everything. Rankings. I know Will touched on it earlier. And just a message, because I'm going to send this to my kids as well. You already know our rule. We love rankings, not for ourselves, but for our opponent. Because they always call us the dark horses. We always the ones that not supposed to win, but find a way to win. So I don't know what that's all about, but we love it.
100.
We love it. You know what I mean? So tough league play for us, in the 4A every year. We're never the ones that's mentioned, but find our way to, get there with the big boys per se. We're going to get a little bit spicy, just a little bit, Coach. They always give me the tough questions. We want you to elaborate, and it's probably like a four-part question. You touched on it a little bit about the D.C. area, PG County basketball, the SMAC, Baltimore counties. Can you elaborate a little bit more about when you're in the gym evaluating, what type of details do you see that's the separation point between the two? Or 3 or 4.
And you're talking about areas of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like I said before, I'm mainly a Baltimore guy, and when I step into a gym and say if it's let's just go Baltimore versus DC for now, and we've seen it before. We've seen the events where it's the MIAAs versus the WCACs. They had it this year. There wasn't, great matchups. I knew the MIAA was going to get smacked because it's just, number one, WCAC was insanely loaded this year. And then, number two, there wasn't many teams here in Baltimore that really just brought that dog mentality. And I think that's what that Baltimore teams have thrived off of in the past. I don't mean to bring up bad memories, Coach, but say with your game against Perry Hall, when you take a team like, now they were uber talented, like obviously you can't teach that. But to be able to storm back like that, and really it was just one guy, but he had that dog in him, and he had what separated his team, or he had what separated his team from everybody else on the floor. So when I'm in a gym and I'm watching a Baltimore team, I expect to see guys who are going to be gritty, who are going to really play off the crowd. That's another thing that they definitely feed off is the energy in the stands. and they're going to be very adept, especially from Baltimore City. They're going to be ready for contact, on their way to the rim or wherever it is that they're going to embrace it. When I see a DC team, especially say WCAC, I know they're going to be extremely skilled. They're going to be, high IQ players that actually know how to play the game. And then they're going to be athletic. And I feel like there definitely are some guys who like to get it out of the mud in the WCAC, but they're more of I would say they're more finesse, and they're more intelligently finessed, whereas you see players at a high level doing what they do. With PG County, the games that I have seen there, they're another group of prospects that definitely love to play off the crowd. They pack the gyms. They love to get their energy from the fans. It's going to be they're just like with Baltimore public school play. There's going to be some plays that make you scratch your head. It was like, what was that guy thinking? Or he just doesn't have the IQ. But that's all instilled within. I just feel like it's more of like a street ball atmosphere. And that goes for the Baltimore area as well when you get into the public school league. Southern Maryland, again, I feel like that is a area that is continuing to grow. But, man, especially in St. Charles Gym, when there's a big game there, I don't know how many people they can fit in that gym, but I feel like it's a college arena. And they pack it from the bottom bleacher to the top bleacher. Now, obviously, they had a really good team this year, and that was a big reason why their gym was why it was. But when I see those type of teams, well, they're playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. And coach, this goes for Bladensburg as well. Playing with a chip on their shoulder just because they get overlooked by everyone else, because it kind of just goes from Baltimore, DC, and then the others. And those others can be the most dangerous teams. I mean, we saw Poly a couple years ago, go down to Oxon Hill. Was it Oxon Hill?
Potomac.
That's you're right.
Potomac and Great Mills.
Yes, and Great Mills, and twice they almost got shook. And I can tell you from very good source that they, not anybody that you guys approach the game as coaches, not anybody from a coach's approach, but from other people, they thought they were just going to go down there and smack them around, and then, hey, we'll go to Maryland. Like, it is what it is. And we're quickly learning that it's not going to be a cakewalk wherever you go once you get to that round of the postseason. So I think it's great. I think it's great for the area. All the areas that are in play. And I also feel like there's always a gem that goes to a private school and says, I'm not getting what I want here, whether it be playing time or college looks and decides to go to a public school and lifts the entire program. And I feel like, the more that we get of those, when those guys really know what they're worth, the better competition that we're going to get around the state. But then, just to kind of tell you guys a difference, because I know I kind of made similarities in all four of those levels. Now we go to, say, a Quince Orchard when we saw them play against Perry Hall out in Frederick. We know they're going to get that ball in the half court, and they're going to use that shot clock. At that time, they didn't have a shot clock, but they're going to wind that shot clock down as much as they can, and they're going to shoot the leather off the ball. Like that's what they do. They're going to run a lot of flex cuts. They're going to run Princeton offense. All this stuff that just kind of almost went out the window in today's game, they're going to emphasize. And sometimes, as we saw, they almost got Perry Hall. But sometimes that style of play, can catch a team sleeping. And, it's just all about, which I know you guys do, but at your guys' school, it's just always about being ready for that opportunity. And whenever you get that opportunity, seize on it. Tobias, you guys did it this year with Delaney. It was a time where, you had some sharks and they smelled blood in the water and you guys capitalized on it. So, but what these kids need to understand is everything before that opportunity is what's going to shape how that opportunity plays out. So showing up to practice on time, staying focused in film for the entire session. When you guys are walking through plays the night before, it's considered a walkthrough, but we want to go hard. We're not gonna really walk throughs because you're already mentally preparing yourself that your last rep was a walkthrough. I don't like that. As a player, for me, every time I left the court, I don't care. I had to make a three, and it had to be a swish. I couldn't hit the rim. Just because mentally I would feel uncomfortable if I went back in the locker room, taking my shoes off, about to leave, and say that shot didn't feel good. I want it to feel perfect. And that's something that, a lot of these kids just can't comprehend at their age, because let's face it, not a lot of us could. When we were juniors, seniors in high school, I was, worried about the girls, worried about this. But when you have those certain special kids on your team that think at that level, that's when your team can really take off, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No hard feelings against Prairie Hall. Like they asked us the night before we were supposed to play them, Coach, what you really gonna do? I said, we're gonna be who we are.
Right.
You're damn right. You know what I mean? So I don't think they knew they hit him in the face. And then my funny LaQuil Hartnett story is when one of our players told me, like, welcome to PG County basketball. Like, they talking trash. And LaQuil yells out, I'm from Philly, yo. I didn't get that Prairie Hall. Like, wait a minute.
Listen. When that group went to Perry Hall, I'm a Perry Hall alum. And when they walked out with what they have, three players, 2 6'8" and 1 6'9". So, bro, listen, I've been in Perry Hall since I was in diapers, and I ain't never seen people this tall walk in this area. So don't tell me 3 of them all of a sudden came out of the woodworks and are I know how this stuff works.
Philadelphia, I'm like, dang, that's how they feel up there. It felt like we was playing like a college team. I mean, not far as the team, but you look at the team and then you look at the stands, like, wait a minute, this is a drastic difference here. You know what I mean? It's like all the players are African American and everybody in the stand. I was like, wait a minute, this is where are we now?
And again, guys, this is another thing I just want to touch on really briefly, because that team was obviously insanely talented. They went off and, they committed to big colleges. Mm-hmm. When kids see that, they tend to get defeated. Well, why is he getting that and I'm not? Those are all my guys. I know them all. I talk to them all. I've spoken with the coach, all that. They were not ready for that at all. They had absolutely no idea what went into a college practice. They had absolutely no idea what goes into preparing for a game or just that lifestyle. They had zero, and that's a big reason why LaQuil didn't work out at Cincinnati. Anthony didn't work out at Illinois. And it's nothing about them. They're still chasing their dreams. LaQuil's up at Buffalo now. Anthony's figuring out himself. But my thing is, there's a lot of kids that might see a talented team like that and they're friends with them, and they ask, hey, what do you guys do in practice? Well, we do 3-on-2, 2-on-1 for about 45 minutes, and then we scrimmage. Well, why does my coach have us doing closeout drills and working on our V-cuts to get open? This is and you guys are going D1 and I'm not getting any D1 looks. My coach must not know what he's talking about. No, because you're going to be prepared for a college practice. Those guys are not. So it's another thing for these kids at their age. It's hard to wrap their mind around because at that age it's just hard. But I think letting them in with that advice or letting them in on that advice can just help them. It's a thought process for them.
Man, you on the head.
But hit it on the head too. But check this out. There's nothing like to be a high school coach in a public school arena, to have your kids to go off to Division 1, 2, 3, junior college, NIAI, and they get to school and they know all the terminology. They know exactly what the coach is talking about. And then the coach will call you and say, man, it's a joy to have them. And that's why I tell a lot of coaches that's recruiting our kids are baby. I'm not going to say they're going to be strong enough to play right away, but they're going to be able to fit in with basketball, because that's what we focus on all day long. Because years ago, when John was playing, we had 00, and that was it for offense. And all we knew is to play hard, stay in front of your man, play defense, and box out. Then when you get to school, you got 17 inbound plays with each play probably got like 6 or 7 options out of it. Then you got to learn how to read screens, and then you get there, you lost. Now you coming back home because you're frustrated because you can't get off the pine. You know, so that's one thing that we always talk about is that it's not because we want to out-coach ourselves. We want to prepare our kids for the situation when a situation come up. Because, you know, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say really quick. So when I went to Lycoming, I'm not sure.
Gerald played there.
I'm not sure. Okay, that's the guy. Gerald was a sophomore when I was a freshman. They also had a kid named Hassan Davis who went to Christ the King.
Mm-hmm.
When I went up there, again, I was Baltimore County Player of the Year. I've scored more than 1,000 points in my 2 years there. I was, you know, I was looked at as this good 3-point shooter, all this. You know, everybody praised the ground that I walked on while I was down here. When I went up there and I had to get a switch on Gerald or Isan, I didn't stand a damn chance. And I had played against some good players. But when I went up there, and again, it was a Division III school, and I just wasn't prepared for that because I didn't have that prior experience or anybody to tell me, look, you're about to enter the jungle and it's on. So again, like there's a lot of kids that think they're ready for the college level. You're not. No matter what level it is, you're not ready. And that's okay, but just embrace that you're not ready. And when I say not ready, I mean for the practices, the film sessions, all that stuff. No matter what you did in college, it's not going to compare to what you're doing. No matter what you did in high school, it's not going to compare to what you got in college. It's a step up and you start back from the bottom.
Yep, and I think a lot of people, even the best, get there and get an eye opening. Even like with the Michael Jordan doc, when James Worthy said, I was the best player on the floor for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then Jordan showed that why he belonged there, you know. So
Yep.
it's always a learning curve, but I think a lot of kids get frustrated with it because they've never been in an adverse situation where things didn't go quite their way. And Coach Small touched on it earlier about Washington Venice. Most times coaches want to see, you know, what you go through adversity too, how you react. Because when I send out film, I don't just send out your best game.
Yep.
You know, I want, hey, coach, man, look, here's one of his worst games. I can tell you what happened in here. Here's one of his better games, and now you can compare the two to make sure you get the right kid. Because I don't want no kid to go down there and then you send them back because you saw a highlight. Because the pandemic is vicious. A lot of kids gonna be the portal gonna be off the chain this next other year.
Yep. So when I was at Hartford Community College, like I said, I had emailed the Stevenson coach and asked him to come out, Coach Stewart, who was a former coach at UC Davis, Division I program, and he's a really well-known coach in the big coaching realm. So every time he came to about 2 or 3 games, and I played terrible. And I went over to him after the 3rd game. I was like, look, coach, you don't have to come anymore if you don't want. I was like, because I know I'm not playing well for you, and I know nothing that I'm doing is going to say that you want me in your program. And he was like, look, I can tell you can shoot. He's like, and I'm glad that I get to see these games because I get to see how you react to them. And luckily I reacted in a good enough way that they still wanted me and still recruited me very heavily. And I ended up going there. But then we go to the Maryland JUCO All-Star game. And I hit some threes, and now 5 Division II schools are on me. Hey, we're going to offer you. You want to come to us? It's like, I don't even know who you are. And you haven't even been talking to me all year. So it just felt good to be accepted by a program that you see when that they still want you even in your worst moments.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you, man. I mean, a lot of people have been saying it all the time. When I'm often watching, man, I appreciate the hard work that it goes into doing what you do because it's a need, and I don't think a lot of people focus on that a lot too heavily. The easy work is to go to the WCHC and say, give me the top 6 or 7 guys, and let me go ahead and get these top 6. That's the easy work. The hard job is finding that diamond, and I think in a rough way where people can actually cherish that kid and like, man, this kid is off. Because Gerald was supposed to go to another school. He chose Lycoming because of the opportunity to play right away. And I'm sure if the other school, which I'm not going to name, would have known that he was going to be the type of kid that he was, undersized point guard, lead the nation in assists and steals, and being a Hall of Fame at Lycoming University, they would have known exactly, I would want this kid too. So those opportunities come up. And like I said, the last thing I'm going to say is that a lot of times too, different divisions are different as far as basketball, but they all tough. Because when I go over to the pit and I watch Washington Venice play against an NIAI school I never even heard of, And those guys coming in like, why is he at an NAIA school? I'm like, wow, this kid can play. But then I start realizing I was just naive about that level of play, like what we talked about the other day. So I appreciate your insight on that. I really do. All right, so I'm going to pass you over to Desmond Wade from Blake High School.
Man, if you haven't dropped enough knowledge on us today, got a great question for you. How much does AAU basketball come into play within prep hoops, and what relationships do you carry within that field?
Again, here's another trail where my honesty kind of comes back to hurt me. AAU plays a big part in what we do at prep hoops. Trying to word this in the correct way. AAU has a lot more agendas than I like dealing with. I want to deal with the high school coaches who, again, get paid 36 cents an hour, and I know are there throughout passion and for the betterment of the kid. Up here, I'm not going to lie, in Baltimore, AAU is a little bit of a mess, and it's this week the kid's playing for this team, the next week he's playing for this team. I don't like that. For me, it's not even so much about the basketball part. It's just about getting these kids ready for the world and just kind of showing them, well, hey, it's not working out there, go here. And it's not working out there either. Okay, we'll just leave and go there as well. Because as I've gotten older and I've gotten to the age where life hits you in the face, you got to look in the mirror and just toughen up. And I feel like that environment is very open for people to run. And not only that, like I said, I just want to see, I like high school games more because it's structured. You're going to see sets being run. You're going to see coaches coaching. And, I can't tell you the amount of times where I've been at an AAU game and the head coach is over on his cell phone or on his Bluetooth talking during a game, or, he's got to run out to the bathroom during a game. Like, what is going on here? Now, when you're talking about the high level teams that you see at Peach Jam, that's another conversation. I mean, those guys are well adapted coaches who could probably coach at a high school level or a college level background. But AAU definitely does give us an opportunity to see those players compete against other top players from other areas. I think that's what I really take away from it. These guys are so used to lacing up against each other, and they know each other's game so well, which, to be honest, on the other side of that coin, I think makes you better because, they know exactly what's coming and they know how to guard each other. But you always have to test that against the waters, outside of our area. So, once you're getting – and when I say this, I'm not really focusing on the blue chip athletes or the guys who are at Peach Jam. Those guys have their futures set. They're good to go. But I'm talking about the Division II, Division III guys, NAIA guys who are going to have to do a couple years of JUCO. I want to see how they react playing against high-level players. And are they going to fold? Are they going to are they going to puff their chest out and accept the competition and accept the adversity? And if they get dunked on by a kid who's going to Duke, well, guess what? Who cares? Let's go back and let's get a good set on the next possession. So AAU definitely does play a factor, but when I'm trying to evaluate a kid for how their IQ is, I'm going to lean on what I saw during the high school season because I just feel like that's more of a realistic stage for college basketball.
Man, that was awesome because so many kids just go to the AAU and then they come back and it's been a thing where they're saying that maybe high school won't matter anymore. So you giving that knowledge and you saying that, hey, I'm actually watching you run this set, or just collab with your teammates that you have your brother in the brotherhood. I mean, that's awesome knowledge, man.
Well,
I appreciate it.
And it's another uphill battle you guys have to climb up because you guys program them all year to run a certain set, and then they go get to play recess for 6 or 7 months. or 4 or 5 months at AAU, in some programs, I should say. But and then they come back in the fall and they're so used to just playing, pretty much roll the ball out and run up and down the floor. And it takes that same amount of time. And especially for you guys in the public school realm, shoot, what do you guys have, 2 weeks to prepare for your first game or first scrimmage? Like,
Yep.
And then you got the other rules where you can't be in contact with them for workouts. So, I'm going to say this again. I like my position. I like what I do. I feel bad for you guys.
Man, again, man, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Coach Will Maynard.
Colby, I'm telling you, man, I'm really enjoying this interview. I'm like Tobias. I'm jotting down my notes, and I'm definitely learning a lot. And definitely some things I'm definitely going to take back, not just to my kids on my team, but just kids in general, because I really think that they need to hear some of these gems that you're giving right now. So you kind of answered my question a little bit. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions. So the first thing is, can you reiterate what you said about advice for a young, aspiring scout, recruiting analyst?
That's a good one. So in my one thing that I will always try to hang my hat on within this business, my first NBA game, I was walking down a hallway and it was just me and David Aldridge was in front of me. And I was extremely nervous, but I wanted to kind of, just introduce myself to him. So as we get down the hall, I finally, get the confidence to say, "Hey, David, can I just talk to you for a second?" And, I was asking him for tips. I said, "So what's your advice for a guy who just wants to try to make it in this business?" And then the crazy part to this story is Michael Wilbon comes up and shakes David's hand. So I'm like, yo, right when I was about to get some advice from probably one of the journalists that I look up to the most, here comes Michael Wilbon. This is going down the toilet, and it's, I'll just keep walking. And David looked at Michael Wilbon and said, "Mike, hold on, I'll get to you in a second. I'm talking with him right now." So first that caught my attention. And I was like, he's on where every journalist wants to be, and he's taking the time out for somebody like me who he just doesn't even know and I'll probably never see again. But when I asked him for advice, he just looked around and he said, "You know what? You just have to listen." He said, "You just have to let people, you have to talk to people, but you have to listen. There's so many people in this industry who want to think that they know it all. And it's because we have a platform to put our opinion out there. And while that's great, it's also crippling a lot of people from not listening to other people's points of view." And, we can go from my industry to just how people are communicating, why social media, it has its pros and it has its very bad cons as well. So what I just try to do is every conversation that I have with somebody, I either try to learn something or take something positive from it, and then try to use it as a strength. So, I'll be honest, a flaw of mine in evaluating is evaluating big guys. Because when I see a 6'9" junior who I just think does not have it, and all these mid-majors are after him, I'm like, yo, what am I missing? And, I had to have a ton of people coming to me like, look, big guys develop slower. They're still growing into their body. They have a lot of learning to do. They have to get more mobility and more confidence in their body before they can really start becoming an effective player. And it took me a while to accept that, but I listened to it, and I had to, I had to remind myself of that every time I did see a big guy where I really wasn't crazy about, but eventually ended up being something. For instance, there's, when I saw last summer, when I saw Jalen Duren from Philly, I've never seen a 10th grader or, he was going into 10th grade at that point, like that kid. So when I saw him, I was like, that's an NBA player. I know that. There's no, I need to wait for something. You can put him into – he's an NBA player. But then there were some bigs in our area that I'm like, yo, I'm going back to my Stevenson team, and we were very good. But, our center would have tore this kid to pieces, and he's getting looked at by some mid-majors. So I just had to ask a lot of questions, and not everybody has the answers, but you need to take little things from everybody that you talk to, and you have to build from it, and you have to remind yourself, you don't know everything, and you're never going to know everything. And the people who are always asking questions are always the most successful people in whatever business that they do. So if I had to give short advice, I would say always listen, always take something positive, and always ask a ton of questions.
Yeah, that's good, and that's good. Definitely good information that you can use not just in your line of work or coaching, but just in life in general. Just following those guidelines can take you far in this world. And then those Stevenson teams you guys had were pretty good. Remember Chris Days, my cousin, he went to Stevenson too. Yep. So I remember going up there watching you guys play, and I mean, you guys definitely weren't a D3 team. I used to tell people all the time, that's not a D3 team. I remember tweeting about that. I was at the game when you guys played, I think, at Vernier for the championship or something like that. I can't remember. Yeah. And I remember one of the first things I said, I was like, all you kids that's sleeping on D3, you need to come to this game now because this ball is on this court right now.
Yep, and man, I'm glad you brought that up because Chris was a guy who was a dynamite scorer in high school, and dominated at that level. And then I came from where I came from. But what Chris did, number one, he sacrificed all of that, and he didn't look for the shot much because he didn't need to on our team. But then also he brought incredible energy defensively. Defense was my weak point. So when coach sat me down and was like, "Hey, look, we're gonna bring you off as sixth man," I completely understood it because Chris gives that energy to start the game off, and then I can kind of sit back and see what the defense is doing and adjust there. So. I'm glad you brought that up because that Stevenson team, all of us were just really willing to give into each other's roles. So Chris was a great dude, man.
Good thing. I'm glad you feel that way about him. I don't. But and this is the last thing I'm gonna say before I pass it on to Coach O so he can close it. We've been asking other coaches this, but since you've been the first guy that hasn't been associated with any program per se, what do you think of the Maryland public school playoff system?
I think it is. They tried to make some adjustments to it this past season that I thought were going in the right direction in terms of, like I said, when that year when Poly had to go down to Potomac and Great Mills. In terms of the seating in the certain areas of where you get placed in a bracket. I think they did a better job of that because there's no reason why they should have to make that drive in that early in the playoffs. Now, they were great games, granted, like I said, and nobody will forget those games, and it gets teams in your guys' area up for, like, look, we could go upset them, and then we're going to Maryland with the as the dark horse. And so while it does kind of limit some opportunities for you guys and for everybody, I think they are starting to make some good adjustments to it. But then again, I mean, I feel like from an event point of view, from an event planning point of view, what they're going to say is, look, nothing's ever going to be right. Nobody and everybody's never going to be happy. You're not going to make everybody happy. So this is what we're going to do, and you guys are just going to learn to enjoy it. Like, that's pretty much the approach that they're having, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm glad that they were open to make changes because maybe that's a sign for the future that for the other things that might need work within it, they're opening to at least evaluating. But I do think, and I don't know the ins and outs of the committee, but I think this is with anything in sports. You need to get people involved within the sport itself to help make those decisions. Don't get some random person who attends a high school game 3 or 4 times out of the year and doesn't know the landscape of all this. We have people that are investing so much time in these events or just in the season. Let's allow that time investment to blossom itself into something that can work out great for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, we talk about it all the time. Anybody else on the panel, please feel free to chime in if you feel need to. But it's just funny to listen to it because we're always, you know what I'm saying, looking from the inside out. But it's always good to get a different viewpoint. And for you being on the outside looking in, you just trying to see what you guys think about it. Coach O, John, anybody, Tobias, anybody got anything to add on to that?
It's on point, man.
Good job, man.
Yeah, that's a good
On
job.
point.
I mean, I don't want to elaborate on it because you already know how I feel.
Well, good. Go ahead. Come on, Mariano Rivera. Close it.
Yeah, man, it's great. I'm not gonna get into it, but it's great, man, to have you on, especially from a different perspective. I would say where you get somebody on that actually looks at the game from a different lens. Somewhat, I don't know why you don't coach, but I know there's a college coach that needs a guy like you because I know evaluation or when it comes down to breaking down film and stuff like that, for you to have that eye for it now, that's going to be a blessing to somebody in the near future. We want to say thank you for coming on the show today, man. We definitely appreciate you. I will be sending you some 2021s that I got on my team so you can evaluate. And always, please, and I love what you said earlier, please be honest, because honesty helps you either motivate you or kill you, so, and if it motivates you, it's a good thing. You got to go out there and get better at your craft, man. So definitely for that as well. So on the behalf of the panel, we want to say thank you again. But I got one last thing we want to ask you. Normally we do this. Is there any questions that you want to ask of us that you may want us to fill in for you before you close out?
Man, to be honest, no, I don't have any questions. The only thing that I can say too, and that I want to take you guys up on, and I'll probably be maybe in contact with you as the time comes. Like, if you guys do need somebody to come in and just talk to the guys, whether it be, we get a couple of the teams in one gym, or whatever, and have your kids ask me questions. Because that's another thing that I want to kind of make transparent is between my position and the players. Well, why do you see this kid is better than me, or blah, blah, blah. And as you guys know, I'll just tell them how it is, and they can love it or hate it. But I definitely I just want to impact as many kids as I can, because I feel like with any platform, you guys do that on a daily basis, being a father figure for these kids. And again, that's the part that I'm missing. I'm not getting from my position. I don't get to really have that effect on a kid, and I got to do a lot of the back work and all this. But if there's any opportunity for, to just come down and talk to the guys and have a Q&A or whatever the case may be, I just want you guys to know that my line's always open to you, and we can definitely make that happen.
Absolutely, man. We definitely appreciate it again. Coaches, good job today. I'm sure we answered all the questions that the people should know. And this one is, I'm already going to say it's going to be top 5 of our interviews that's going to be most viewed. We want to appreciate you again, Colby G. We will definitely be seeing you around. Be safe and continue to be a blessing to those around you, man. Appreciate you.
Yep, you guys too. I appreciate again the opportunity to come on here. You guys stay safe, and I wish the best to you and your families.
Now the opposite deserted. Only lions in my circle, we hungry for purpose. Nothing given, all these stripes, you can see that I earned them. Can't fuck the system, take the knowledge and study and learn it. Be as strong as the weakest, 1 through 12 is equal. Tried to trap me, so now I had to thread the needle. I had to thread the needle, try erase and draw it up, just trying to see my youngins in. Yeah, I had to thread the needle, try erase and draw it up, just trying to